Mama, why do I have to go to the hospital again? That was the question my little cousin Kemi asked one afternoon as we sat under the mango tree in our family compound. Her voice was faint, her body tired. She was only 8 years old, but the weight of her pain made her seem much older. I didn't know how to respond. How could I explain that the answer lay in choices her parents made long before she was born? Growing up in our small Nigerian village, life was simple but vibrant. Everyone knew everyone, and the community operated like one big family. That's why when my Aunt Titi and Uncle Kunle fell in love, it was the talk of the town. They were a beautiful couple, young, full of life, and deeply in love. Kunle was the charming storyteller, and Titi was the kind-hearted one who never turned anyone away. But their love came with a risk. When Titi and Kunle announced their relationship, the elders called them aside. "You are both AS," the village midwife said one evening after church. She explained that AS referred to their genotype and that two AS individuals had a high chance of having children with sickle cell disease. "It is not wise," she warned gently. But Titi and Kunle were stubborn. Kunle would laugh and say, "God is bigger than any genotype." Titi, confident in their love, would add, "Faith will carry us through." When even their pastor tried to counsel them, they dismissed him, claiming that their love and prayers would protect their future children. Despite the warnings, they got married. It was a big celebration, full of music and dancing. The entire community came out to witness it, though many whispered their concerns in hushed tones. A year later, they welcomed their first child, Kemi. Kemi was a happy, bright-eyed baby, but by the time she turned 6 months old, something seemed off. She cried more often than other babies, and her fevers were frequent and severe. At first, everyone thought it was just the usual childhood illnesses, but the visits to the clinic became more frequent. By the time Kemi was 2, the doctors confirmed what the elders had feared. She had sickle cell disease. From that moment, life changed drastically for Titi and Kunle. Hospitals became a constant in their lives. Every few weeks, Kemi would have what the doctors called a crisis. Her tiny body would writhe in pain, and she'd cry for hours. It was a helpless, piercing sound that broke all our hearts. The medicines provided temporary relief, but the pain always returned. Titi and Kunle tried everything: modern treatments, traditional herbs, and endless prayers. They spent nights awake, watching over her, hoping for a miracle that never came. The strain began to show. Kunle had to sell his motorcycle to pay hospital bills, and Titi started a small business, frying a car by the roadside to make ends meet. The love they once shared became buried under the weight of their struggles. They started arguing frequently. "You were the one who insisted we could handle this," Kunle would shout. "And you didn't stop me, did you?" Titi would fire back. The once perfect couple had become shadows of their former selves. Meanwhile, Kemi's pain didn't just affect her parents, it affected all of us. She couldn't play with other kids or attend school regularly. She spent many days curled up in bed, too weak to move. Whenever I sat with her, she would ask questions that broke my heart. "Uncle Femi, why am I always sick? Did I do something wrong?" she asked one day, her voice trembling. How could I explain to her that her suffering wasn't her fault? How could I tell her that it was the result of a choice her parents had made out of love, faith, and a little recklessness? The community that had once celebrated Titi and Kunle now looked at them with pity or judgment. "They were warned," an elderly woman muttered one day at a village gathering. "They chose love over wisdom, and now the child suffers." Others said it was God's punishment for ignoring the advice of their elders. But amidst the whispers, there were moments of kindness. My grandmother, the matriarch of our family, called everyone together one day under the same mango tree where Kemi often rested. She didn't scold or point fingers. Instead, she spoke with a calm but firm voice. "When elders advise, it is not to control you, but to protect you," she said. "Love is a beautiful thing, but it is not enough. Wisdom and responsibility must walk hand in hand with love." Titi and Kunle's story should remind us all that our decisions do not only affect us, they affect the generations that come after us. Her words stayed with everyone that day. Today, Kemi is 10 years old. Her health is still fragile, and her parents are doing their best to make life easier for her. They have become advocates in the community, urging young couples to know their genotypes before marriage. They openly share their story, not out of shame, but as a warning to others. This isn't a story about blame or judgment. It's a story about the consequences of choices. Titi and Kunle loved each other deeply, but they ignored wisdom, and their daughter bears the burden of that decision. If you're watching this, let Kimmy's story be a lesson. Love is important, but it is not blind. It must be paired with knowledge, wisdom, and responsibility. Before you take the step to marry, ask the hard questions. Listen to the advice of those who have walked the path before you, and remember your decisions today could shape the lives of your children tomorrow.